Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GRAPPL Weekend Show for Thursday, the 5th of December, 2024. I'm Benno.
And I'm JP.
And we are here for a weekend show, JP. It feels odd. Not out of practice of weekend shows, out of practice of weekend shows with yourself. Good to have you back, mate. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you, mate. Honestly, it's been a madcap couple of weeks. You guys, I mean, brilliant stuff. I've loved having a listen to everything while I've been away, but I won't lie, I've been itching to get back into the hot seat. It's
What's
been
new, mate? How's things? 24 hours, good night's sleep last night, I imagine. Feeling rested.
Don't.
I'm sure you're good.
Don't. I finished work and I came back and I was like, oh, Vicky's not here. And it turns out that she was at the out of hours kind of like very nearby like hospital up the road, and then we end up having to go to the major A&E department because of Molly basically had a cold. I think that's the easiest way of saying it. But with babies, newborn babies, because they're not immunized, you've just got to then start to get together and try and you've got to bring them in. So we were there till like 2 a.m. As it is, because Britain is broken and children he was fucking heaving, mate. Heaving.
Bloody hell. I was going to say, I said to you off air, Tory Britain, but it's just the new version of Tory Britain, pretty much as what we're living in.
It is, I wanted to be optimistic about them when they've come in and they fucking push my patience, I tell you. But yeah, it's this country, mate. It's just gone to the fucking dogs. Like, I think there's no other way of saying it than that. It really is. And I think last night, having seen the NHS like that, and you don't ever fault the people who work there. You just think it's just been put into an impossible position. Impossible. What can they do? There's no resourcing or anything else. And it was so packed in the children's ward that there were families out in the main bit of the A&E where there was all sorts of characters there as well. But Molly was fine, got her back home, got her into some semblance of sleep, and then back to the grind of work and everything else this week. And I'm just praying, well, for this weekend and then for the Christmas holidays that begin basically next weekend. And I'm like out the fucking door, and I'm not looking at that place where I work for a few more weeks. So
good plan. It's just crazy that you're already back at work. That's just kind of how it works. And it was just funny because, like, on Spotlight, obviously, I'm complaining about not getting enough sleep, mate, and I can't imagine being in your shoes. I've honestly, my sleep pattern has been so fucked, JP, just from going on a holiday. How fucking spoiled am I that I've come full circle and have a sleep pattern's like a regular person. Fell asleep at 8 o'clock last night. Got up at 8 o'clock. And then went to work. And I know to some people, other than the 12-hour part of it, that's pretty normal. For me, it scared me. It made me worried. I don't know what I need to get back to my unhealthy sleep pattern where I go to sleep at 4 in the morning and get up at 10, something like that. It just felt wrong. I don't know what's wrong with me, JP. I've overcorrected now. Now I'm like a normal human being and we can't have that. I need to stay up for Dynamite and such,
I was going to say, when we get into the Dynamite review, I'm really curious to know when you watched it, because it's like you watched it on JP time.
Yeah, I did. Watch it this evening, literally right before we came live. Yeah. Just
watching it before we get onto it, it's like, okay, that's interesting, because I expect you to be watching it live. Sleep at 8 o'clock. I mean, I have to say, massive shout out on Spotlight with that opener that you did, just with you being asleep.
Pillow here somewhere
at the beginning. But you mentioned that that's the biggest fear. That has been a fear that's been in my mind for I'm sure there's an occasion where you've had to call me because I've nodded off, because and if you do any recording with any Americans or Canadians, then fucking hell, you're up till I remember doing like with WH and for post at like 3 a.m. and I just went, this is mad. Mental.
That was our WH on Tokyo time doing his best. But yeah, usually I watch it on delay at 4 a.m. Andy says, no, that's the thing. I think watching Dynamite live, and we're going to get to the Dynamite review later. If anyone's never heard the weekend show before, you might be out there. We do get there eventually. But genuinely, like, I find it, I don't know how you all do it, watching wrestling the day after. I have to watch it live, because at least in the moment, you kind of get that bit of a buzz of watching it live, or maybe it's just me kind of communal watching it with everybody, getting up that next day and looking at to fucking Triller app and realizing there's 2 full hours in front of you. My dodgy box has started having Dynamite the day after. I don't know if yours is the same, but it doesn't cut the ads either. It's the fucking Triller version. Like, they don't do the work that the great men like Sir Paul used to do in the past and cut those breaks out. Like, the amount of times I sit there rewatching it as well and just forgetting to skip along. Like, I sit there with the Dynamite song playing while I'm just fiddling on my phone, and like 3 minutes in, go, oh fuck, I forgot to skip another ad break. It's hard work, mate, honestly. Live, I feel like it's I don't know, it gets me through it a little bit more, but bloody hell, don't know how you do it.
And it's exciting as well if you're watching it live. At
See,
least
Platt says you can skip shite the day after. We can't though, can we? We have to watch. We have to know it's shite to review it. That's the other problem, you know.
It's like I can watch it kind of like and just go, oh, this is shit, with just that thought process in my head as well. But I still have to force my eyes to actually look at it while it's there. But you mentioned about dodgy options. I tend to find my dodgy box when it comes to updating wrestling shows. It goes all over the fucking place. This is a first world problem and a piracy problem. But it will say, oh, here's the AEW pay-per-view. No, it's the 0 hour. And then you just wait for a random time where it gets updated and it comes in. And then it has like starring Jonathan Good. Irvine.
That reminds me of like I don't know why I was looking today. I think I was looking. Oh, I was being lazy. I was uploading Retro, and I was looking for the Retro description I'd done before. And I googled it. I literally googled my own podcast, and the results that came up with it was IMDb, and I forgot that we're on there. Like literally every episode of Spotlight's on IMDb, which is wild. Like I feel like it doesn't have like starring JP Houlihan and starring, you know, all of it and all our credits listed there right down to Rev Joe, but it just has the episode title as like a base thing. But I think that's pretty cool. We've made it, you know, that it's on there.
Oh, that's it, mate. We just go, we're off. Just give up now. We're on IMDb. That's from, as far as I'm concerned, that's a professional credit. Yeah. Any employer then looks and searches your name and go, oh, he's on IMDb here. What the hell's going on with this bloke? Mate, that is fucking awesome.
It's a winner. That and I'm being in the top 5 on Malta. Apple Podcast is probably the 2 things that I'm going to be putting on my CV. Currently, by the way, the spotlight from this week and the episode of Benno and Hamlet in Your House, available everywhere podcasts are sold. Currently awesome both stuff. In the top 5 right now, straddling, I think, the Eric Bischoff or Kevin Nash or somebody like that. I think Undertaker's in there. But, you know, they love us out there, so that's good. Yeah, executive producer Matthew Edwards. He gets that executive producer credit. He's one of the people you learn about years later, still earning a penny on every play of Spotlight. I think that's written into his bloody calendar. But you'll be seeing Matty this weekend, JP, to get into what we're talking about today. We are going to be blessed with your appearance on Saturday night at the Birmingham GRAPPL Christmas Night Out. If you happen to be listening to this, even as late as Saturday, it's still time, folks, for you to come out and see us. Anybody's invited, but we're going to be wetting the baby's head. You were telling me off air you're going to be getting the last coach home. That's the plan, or the one before it. It's going to depend how it's going, or the one after it. Maybe we could I've done many a late night coach home from Birmingham. It could be done.
It could be a bit of all of that stuff, really. It's going to be. I'm relying on that coach journey to be the sober up bus. Go sit on it, fall asleep, wake up, go right. Bit of a cycle, which I know is a risk at that time of the day. I'll have the bike lights on unless I've been nicked by some prick in Oxford, because that happens all the time. And then it'll be, and then back home for like an hour's sleep, basically. It'll be, I'm massively looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to being on GRAPPL, lads, because like, I've loved the first couple of episodes, and it's just like, I want to be
you need to be tactical with that, I think. Needs to be recorded at a certain part of the day and not another certain part of the day. You know, you got to learn from Andy Ogden. You got to get that good spot in at the corner of the pub, not get it too crazy. Maybe early afternoon at some point when we first arrive. Maybe that'll be the
I think that's we'll get cracking shout. That
might even be a 2-parter as me Gareth in it, because Gareth's not coming, unfortunately, because of the fucking derby, which is understandably the last derby at Goodison. So his wife is going, so Gareth's stuck at home in Liverpool on babysitting duty, unless we can find some way to get him to come on Saturday. But I'm actually seeing him tomorrow. Him, Matty, at Davey Portman's actually in town, going to be in Liverpool for a wedding, so we're going to go for a couple of beers with him tomorrow. So maybe we'll make it a 2-parter GRAPPL, lads, or maybe we'll get one in the can for later. I don't know. Haven't decided yet, but we could.
I think it'd be rude not to record with him while he's there, wouldn't it? It'd be. Honestly, I'm gutted actually not getting a chance to see Davey while he's over here though. At the same time, I know he's had his Christmas dinner already hasn't he? He's
doing well.
He's already in on that, and it's just like we're barely in December, so I don't know how many Christmas dinners he's planning on having in the main. But yeah, busy weekend. I mean, for you, it sounds especially like a massive session.
It's probably going to be. Chat saying here could be one for you. You kip in. It says Matty's room. It's my room. I've paid for it. Matty still owes me money for it. It's only about £3, but still, I'm going to get it out of him. I'll get him to buy. You know what'll happen? He'll go, I'll buy you a beer. And then he'll buy me a beer. And guess what'll happen? I'll buy him a beer back. And then Matty will still win. He'll find a way to win. But yeah, there's always room on our floor, JP. Me and you can have a competition, snoring competition once again between us. That could work. JP's Sober Lex Express could be your trip home. But yeah, we will be recording GRAPPL lads at some point over the weekend. We'll also have time coming out. That was planned, to be honest. We were going to be recording that tonight after weekend show, but unfortunately things are a bit topsy-turvy with Matty and some stuff going on with him, so we're holding on, but that will be out in place of Spotlight for Monday, so that will be out there as we are all in Birmingham. And of course next Tuesday we'll have the story of Eddie and Ray. Hopefully people have got the homework started by now. The great King Connor has put together. You're going to be on that one as well, JP. Can't wait to dive into some Eddie and Eddie Ray lore too.
This is where I'm coming to it. It's almost like doing Ring of Honor, where I've got no preconceived notions. I'm just thinking, I remember remarkably little about this. There's that part, and when you said about like that IWC version of like the Halloween Havoc like match and things like that, I was like, yeah, that's probably me. That describes me to a T. So I'm interested just to see, what I make of it at this point in time, and I'll just be looking at how much Dominic Mysterio has changed over the years, or has
and not
he
much
changed?
Is the answer. He dyed his hair a different colour and he got a mustache. That's pretty much the difference. Pretty much the same otherwise.
That's the same as us lot then, really, isn't it? That's what we've all managed.
I'm a bit out of
to
control
now.
I'll be sharp by the weekend, but I'll do my best. But yeah, you and Tony's watching some Eddie and Ray. It's very soap opera, JP, but I think it'll be right down your street, so I look forward to seeing it. But yeah, all that is coming up, and obviously the remainder of the December schedule is out there as well. So yeah, lots coming up. Grappies, Crappies, Ask GRAPPL, little special Christmas film club we'll have coming up, as well as Time Retro, all the usual stuff as well. So millions of things going on. Best time to be a patron. So glad to have you all along with us. And on that note, JP, we should get into this week's weekend show and the news, mate. And we'll bring you back in with this light-hearted subject to kick off with, mate. But one very important and worth covering.
Yeah, exactly. What a way to jump back in. It's we've had on the. A judge has paused the WWE Ring Boy lawsuit because pending a Maryland Supreme Court decision. This is obviously the story about the Ring Boys, and these were events that were going back into the sort of the early 80s in particular, with the ring announcer Mel Phillips. And there was effectively a lawsuit, the plaintiffs themselves are anonymous, but 5 of them as well. And obviously the accusations there are about Vince and Linda McMahon. And this was filed in October. Well, effectively, WWE on Monday filed to pause the case for the time being, because there is going to be the impact of the Maryland Supreme Court, which is going to be happening in August 2025. So don't expect any movement on it until then. And this is about the Maryland Child Victims Act of 2023 and about whether or not it is constitutional, basically, and whether or not has it passed the statute of limitations. In other words, has too much time gone for people to be held liable for this? And it's a case that has to go before the state Supreme Court, basically. So that's been on hold, and it feels to me like it's following this really horrible, worrying pattern of, since the election, any of the kind of what we thought was going to end up being, big lawsuits, big cases. They're just being effectively quashed in the meantime and kind of disappearing. I know we've not spoken about Janelle Grant and whatnot, but it is very, very dispiriting.
Yeah, it's this 2023 Child Victims Act that basically took away the statute of limitations, didn't it, on cases like this. And obviously should be said, the case against Vince and Linda is that obviously they allowed the abuse of Mel Phillips to go on. And the fact that these this could be filed in court originally because of that, because the statute of limitations have been lifted. It's the same reason, you know, all those other cases have been happening. P. Diddy being the biggest one that most people know about, you know, and it's one of those, you go on like the Instagram comments of like I follow a lot of like hip hop news sites type thing, and it'll be like a story about the latest one accusation against Diddy, or the latest accusation against a few of the other people who've been named in different cases. And it's like, oh, isn't it typical? They're all coming out the woodwork now. It's like, no, they're all coming out the woodwork now because there is the statute of limitations on such crimes was lifted, and it allowed, you know, victims from historic sex crimes to come forward and make accusations. And again, yeah, you're absolutely right, it does indicate maybe you know, a shifting in the I don't know, in the feeling in America, and just the shifting winds of who's in political power now. And that goes hand in hand, doesn't it, with obviously the greater Vince McMahon and WWE case, which might end up going the same way. We're already seeing, you know, the Supreme Court justice is always in the news when it comes to American politics, but we're already seeing, you know, people standing down from positions, you know, on the legal side in America, and shifts happening, and Trump appointments are obviously going to be coming for very important roles. And maybe some of these cases that there was an appetite for when there was definitely a more liberal leading government in place is obviously going to shift at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the big thing to note from here is that the confirmation, like, so Trump obviously will be inaugurated in January.
Yeah.
Then what will happen after that is there'll be the confirmation process for his appointees. Although he does have a habit of using a lot of kind of temporary appointments just to circumvent it, and then just keeping them in place until he gets bored of them and fires them, because that's what Donald Trump does. In the case of Linda McMahon, as she was going to be Secretary of State for Education, this case kind of going on to the back burner is something that will probably end up aiding that process. And like for her, because if this wasn't the case and there was going to be a lawsuit coming up, it would have then created those headlines, and it would have given Trump a way out in order to kind of get rid, as he's doing with some other people, like a Matt Gaetz, for example, or the guy from Fox News, as he wants as the Secretary of Defense in Peak Hegseth. You know, those people are like kind of like struggling with it. But I think in this case for Linda McMahon, the fact that this is on the back burner till at least August 2025, and you might find it getting pushed back even more, means that I think when it comes to her confirmation process, she'll get through, and she'll get through with just Republican votes, because they control all the levers of power, if I could talk properly, including the Supreme Court.
Yeah. And if that doesn't work, Vince is probably getting a pardon, based on what's happened with Hunter Biden. We don't know. Obviously, nothing was going to stop Trump doing such things anyway. But I think the moral high ground of the left has been taken away a little bit these last couple of weeks, hasn't it, mate?
It has, yeah. And I think, you know, with the Hunter Biden thing is always interesting, because I think it's, what would we do in that position? We'd probably do that. I think the problem is you can't
be able to do that, though, should you? It's very like, you know what I mean? It's like the Queen having like power still over here. It's like, that just feels wrong, you know?
Yeah. It'd be like the Queen, for example, going, Prince Andrew did nothing wrong whatsoever, and you can never speak about it ever again. Yeah. It's the same case, and it can end up just being abused, as it naturally will do by people in power. And, you know, what Trump pushes up against a lot of the times is what is just considered to be norms rather than hard and fast rules. And he's just like, yeah, I don't acknowledge those norms. I'm not interested in it. And that's what will end up happening here. And yeah, I await the day that even if Vince is found guilty, that it's just a case where he'll end up being pardoned, because that's how it works in the States.
Yeah, that's it. The time for any, I would say, possibility of justice being served in these cases was pre-Trump, and now I think it's anybody's guess. So we will see. Will says here, yeah, JP pardons Hunter, tells him to get the good stuff in to celebrate.
His good stuff is not my good stuff, mate. That's his. His good stuff is mental.
You've got too many
shit.
kids to use your pardons, JP. You couldn't use that many pardons, you know? You'd have to pick and choose. Hopefully none of them end up like Hunter Biden. Fingers crossed. I think it's unlikely. But anyway, on that note, we should move on from that. Obviously, the most important of WWE stories right now. But some of the WWE news before we get into the AEW stuff and Dynamite did come across the wire today that apparently Saturday night's main event and that we have been wondering where that was going to air is going to be on YouTube in the UK, so they're not going to be using the network. Obviously, this comes in the shadow of the news that we talked about on Spotlight a little bit about the network being free going forward for I think it's just for people who've been subscribers. So unfortunately, not freeloaders like me and you, JP. Although I still know Garrett's password, so we're all good. That's obviously happening in the background, which did make people think, will they just throw this on the network, even though it's dying in a month or so? But no, they're going with YouTube. That YouTube ad revenue, mate, all very important, as we well know. Maybe they'll get a few YouTube members out of it as well. But that comes in as well in the shadow of shows starting to appear on Netflix. I don't know if you saw today on the Discord, a few people posting screenshots of I think season 40 of WrestleMania, and crucially to me, season 1 of In Your House being available on Netflix, and other such.
That was the one that got my attention, mate. That one, yeah.
I think some of these. I think it was Ben explained it that it's by year if it's a pay-per-view, but it's actual seasons if it's a TV show, because Raw allegedly has like a season premiere and a season ending. But promising that there's a fair amount of current stuff that's it's all got a note on it saying appear in January 1st. So yeah, it's just In Your House 1. I think you can see at the minute, but hopefully 2, 3, 4, and the rest that we'll be reviewing on Benno and Hamlet In Your House appears as well. But yeah, does it shock you at all that they're using Netflix for Saturday night? Using YouTube for Saturday night main events and not the network over here?
I suppose it doesn't shock me, but
I guess could use Netflix.
Yeah, it doesn't. That would have been an interesting one to see whether or not they could have got it onto Netflix as a bit of a primer. I think YouTube's a great shout, just in terms of putting eyeballs on the product in a free place, with the aim of obviously heavily promoting the fact they're going to Netflix. That will be what the purpose of that is, and getting people enthused, people who are. It's the first reaches of getting into those lapsed fans, isn't it? And putting on a show it's replacing any PLEs for them this month. Although, as we'll get onto with Deadline and the branding change and stuff like that, I think it's a really good shout. I mean, I don't necessarily, I don't expect it to be like one of the world's greatest shows, but I think one of the things they've always managed to do really well was manage their social media, and in particular their YouTube. The stuff they've done with the Vault is great, and how that's where I kind of expect to see your old pay-per-views and everything else going to, and that just to make that kind of stronger. And putting this on there is a bit of a no-brainer. It's not behind any paywalls. It's not, there's no restricted access. I think they just want to get as many eyeballs onto it as possible. People look at the product, think, yeah, this is pretty. This is good. This is for me. Get those lapsed fans, get them into thinking about, I've already got Netflix. I'll make sure to watch it when it comes into it. So just look at it as the promotional tool that it is for particularly that first month in January.
It'd be interesting to see what they do with because there's obviously the follow-up Saturday night's main event in January, which is the week before the Rumble, which is on February 1st. Did you see the Netflix account already getting shirty with WWE fans? Some of the answer was like, Royal Rumble's in February. As far as I remember, it's always in January, and like somebody on the Netflix account literally did a John Briley and replied something along the lines of, well, I've just checked the maths, and February the 1st is one day apart from January, but thanks for your question. With that in mind, they're doing Saturday night's main event again, at the end of January. So I guess we'll see whether over here we get that on Netflix rather than YouTube at that point, or maybe this is just a stopgap. It's got to go somewhere.
I wonder whether or not. I mean, that one's going to be an interesting one in the sense it's the go-home show for the Rumble. So there's a legitimate question of like, do you put it on Netflix because it fits in with the product? It's another big show to put onto Netflix early doors, or do you put it on YouTube in order to get those kind of eyeballs of people to then be heavily pushing the Rumble, and then to get them watching the Rumble on Netflix? And whether or not that's going to be, there's a good argument for them to do it either way. It's just the timing of it is is obviously really fortuitous for them as well. It's quite weird, isn't it? It's like Saturday Night's Main Event disappears for years, and then we got 2 in 2 months. It's odd.
I imagine they're going to treat it with it seems like a bit more seriousness than say a Battle of the Belts or something like that. So
yeah,
it's interesting. Obviously, yeah, Bill says Netflix because all of the program is going to be on there at that point. So yeah, it probably makes sense. Worldwide, isn't it? It's going to be universal apart from the still standing Peacock deal in the US for the pay-per-views. But speaking of Netflix, a little bit more on that. Obviously, WWE's programming, what's it going to look like when it comes to Netflix? Well, Nick Khan says apparently the rating won't change. So anybody hoping for the end of the alleged PG era, you're not getting it on Netflix according to WWE. Triple H to the few quotables as well. He keeps going back to that. He loves that little story about how, you know, if we had buffering problems like the Tyson fight, we'll be celebrating that. It's like, all right, I think Netflix probably want you to play that down now and stop acting like it's going to happen every week, which again is the reason, you know, part of the reason I think WWE programming is going to be live on Netflix. It's a great little, lighter way to trial those systems rather than the 8 billion people that were watching the Tyson and Jake Paul fight. But yeah, Nick Khan has said there's going to be it's not going to, like, things are going to change or become R-rated, or in his words, X-rated. He's expecting things to stay pretty much exactly as they are on there, and said that he doesn't expect much change. Do you expect any big differences on WWE on Netflix? They are talking about this January 5th first, because that's the other big date in January for WWE, the first Raw on Netflix. There's been headlines that I think this again comes from Triple H comments about how it's going to be like a WrestleMania. I'm sure it's not going to be like a WrestleMania. I doubt Dwayne's turning up, although maybe he could. But they're obviously going to be putting a lot behind it. Obviously, John Cena on there, Travis Scott on there as well. It's going to be a busy little January.
Oh, it's a mammoth January for them. It's really important because they've got to hit the ground running with this deal as well. Because obviously, as Will is very fond of telling us as well, there is a break in the clause if they don't want to go along with it after 5 years, and they can do that. And is it going to follow in the pattern of what the Fox deal did? I know there was an interesting conversation on our group chat today that I managed to catch up on not long before jumping on here, and I was like, oh, okay. And about how good and how, viable do we think they're going to be doing? I think them sticking to the PG era is the wise move from a business perspective, because I don't think of this current incarnation of WWE as like a PG era. It just doesn't have sex, and it doesn't have blood, and it doesn't have swearing. It's just very careful not to do that. But if we compare it to what we think of as like a PG era, where the characters were completely fucking daft and they were really childish, we've moved away from that. And that was more my problem at the point in time of like, no, this is just appealing to kids. This is actively turning off young adults. This product isn't doing that. It's just not doing other things. I always think as well with a Netflix deal, there is the thing you need to all need to take into consideration. If it is TV PG, does Raw, is it able to also go into the kids version of Netflix, which is important, like, because not only will it appear in the adult, but if you've got the kids, the family and kids selection as well, does Raw go onto that as well at the same time? Because that's then how you're going to get in that younger fan base as well, which obviously is how they're really wanting to conquer in terms of selling toys and merchandising and things like that as well. So there's that side of it. I think it's just a wise move for them to do. If they're carrying on like this era, there's all these, like, what do we call this era? It's the competent era. That's what it is. It's just them running a company properly for the first time ever with some degree of planning and forethought that's going into it. And they're just doing this for the first time ever. I think this is definitely the wise move to go, because it just makes them much more viable as a universal product. I think they've managed to counter any of the kind of like bad publicity of the era. And if you go back, and you're going to be doing it for us, certainly with old Mickey Hamflet, you go back and watch some of that Attitude Era, like, it doesn't hold up. Like, we've got a lot of, that element of nostalgia that we all have for it. It's like, there's a lot of it that was shit.
Hamflet said there, like, the good thing about that Vault channel is that, like, it tells you what to watch rather than being paralyzed by choice, which is kind of what the Netflix problem was. It was always nice to have that back catalogue, and for podcasters like us to have, you know, an easy place to go and watch stuff. But generally speaking, did you really go back and watch stuff? You didn't. But we're all going to be annoyed if it's not there when it comes to it to Netflix. But the thing that will be there, and I think it'll be shot window, I think, at least for the first while, it'll be right there front of house on Netflix. It'll be hitting people over the head with the fact that WWE's available. Rama makes a good point of like, yeah, you know, will people actually, you know, is the product presentable and attractive enough for people outside of people who are already WWE fans? I think it might attract a couple of people. I think it might just make it easier for the people who do like WWE in general to watch a couple of minutes of it, which in turn makes it easier for WWE to be like, to add those people as numbers. You can imagine how inflated the numbers are going to be when we first start getting them in January, when they've got control over it and they can talk about, you know, they can manipulate the streams and make it look as great as possible. You know, Andy makes the point, yeah, to keep the 3-hour Raw is not going to make many new fans. Although, if the 3-hour Raw was as good as this week's Raw was, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I guess you could do that. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. 3 hours on TV kind of made sense, but I expect on Netflix for them to withdraw from that quite quickly. I think, depending on, you know, how many ads we get and how many ad breaks there are through the show, because we don't know little details like that, do we? It might turn out the runtime ends up being closer to 2 hours, hopefully. But yeah, that could help. The Cody era, yeah, I'm with you on that one, Andy. We could call it that, but I'm still bullish. I'm not as crazy on it as like, oh, they're going to create 50 million more fans and Raw's going to overnight be different. It's a bit like, remember the Fox when they went on Fox and there are all those crazy estimations out there about the, you know, SmackDown was going to all of a sudden do 6 or 7 million people, and it was because of, you know, the difference between broadcast and cable, and it was like, yeah, but you still need the actual eyeballs and the people who actually want to watch this product to be out there, and are there that many of them? No, not really. But I do think it'll have a little bit of it'll, at least on paper, be a stronger number, at least for the first while on Netflix. Once that shine wears off, we'll see. You know, only people are going to be clicking through those older stuff. We'll see also, but yeah, it can't hurt.
Exactly. And, you know, the statistic that we'll end up hearing is 20 million unique views and stuff like that. That'll be and it'll be people
like
who clicked
the TikTok
on it.
numbers for the Punk and Roman gif that's been going around. Yeah, there'll be a lot of that.
90 odd million, but something that isn't doing 20 million, but still doing all right for them as well. Yeah, exactly. Hell of a segue, Matt. Well, it was rating stuff, so it worked out all quite nicely. There was a big surge in viewership for the Raw after Survivor Series, because they had obviously I thought a cracking New Day segment on there as well, and it all drew 1.714 million, up from 1.51 million the week before. And in terms of the old 0.54 and the 18 to 49 on there, which is well up from the 0.47 and 0.49 the 2 weeks before on there as well. So well up on that at that stage. Did really well. They're depressingly hitting a decent run of form, aren't they?
You're the holdout. All Discord have turned babyface on WWE at this point. I don't like Matty winning, so that's the depressing part for me. But Raw was good. Like, I don't mind if a good show does well. It actually didn't do that well, unfortunately, as you've kind of said there. But that it's always, you have an opening half hour with no ads. It's always going to perform strong, isn't it? Like you're always going to have that like boosting you up, even if like some of the other metrics on it were a little bit disappointing. Obviously, we won't throw it on screen because out of respect to the great Brandon Thurston and his dislike of people doing such things, but like when you look at the quarter hours for Raw, it did rise through those first 2 quarters, like the peak being the second half of that. Honestly, the New Day segment's gotten a lot of the love, JP, out there, but that first half hour of Raw I thought was fantastic. Maybe I'm pilled to like it that much. And I'm talking about a segment with Seth Rollins, but I thought Seth Rollins and CM Punk's back and forth was really well done. Even if Punk still seems to lose himself a little bit. The weird thing about like the WrestleMania sign not being there and all of that was a little bit odd, but the intensity was there. And it's not a bad program if it's not the WrestleMania program, him and Seth. I'd rather they got it over with, because it's, you know, this was the best it's looked, but you don't want it to look like a Drew McIntyre Jr. program. But the way and it's very WWE. I wouldn't want this out of AEW. because the entire first half hour was just talkies, because it went from that and they segued it really nicely into, you know, the stuff with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso and Punk, you know, obviously Punk and Rollins being there, and Rollins going back and forth with Sami Zayn talking about Roman Reigns, and that was really well done as well. Like, it was a great half hour for people who like talkie wrestling, and people who don't necessarily want what AEW will provide you on their TV. You add to that the New Day angle, which did pretty well in the quarter hours. That was I think the second best quarter, 1.88 million for that one as well. It kind of shows you what people are tuning into these WWE shows for. You got a strong rating for that too, and obviously I very much enjoyed my boy Drew McIntyre coming back. To be honest, I really enjoyed Gunther and Dominic Mysterio the couple of times they've had random matches on Raw, but Gunther's like situational babyface knocking shit out of Dominic Mysterio. I'd take more of that. Raw was for a Raw, a very good show. And Gareth will say, well, you're only talking about the positives, and we are. You know, I'm not talking about Dakota Kai versus Shayna Baszler for a reason, but overall, or, you know, Finn Balor or any of that stuff, but overall, it was a really good show. And yeah, I think the individual quarters, I think, tell you the tale there is of what is really hitting with WWE right now. Whether we'll get that level of granular data, as the chat are asking, when it goes to Netflix, is a question I was going to answer, as Will has said there. Yeah, there is a Nielsen top 10 streaming. You'd imagine, as I think Will has said himself, you would imagine Raw will make that top 10 at the very least. But yeah, not sure we'll get this level of granularity, as a man once said.
There is a media company, I was listening to Pollock and Thurston talk about it. I don't want to say it's called like Video Amp or something along those lines, who are looking at doing the kind of granular detail around streaming, which has been desperately needed for such a long time. And those companies need it as well. But this ties in really with what you meant, the stuff you mentioned there about Raw. About, I watch it and there's times I go, well, it's not for me effectively, but you can't help but say the stuff that they're doing and the fan service that they're giving and giving the people what they want, they're doing that really well. And they are like, I mean, if you think about how bad that show is, so I suppose it's coming from such a low base overall, isn't it? But it seems to me that every week on Raw, there's something that Dynamite doesn't do anymore. It has a really memorable segment. There's something there that you think, oh, I need to see this. So as soon as I heard about the New Day segment, it was like, well, I need to see that. I need to see what exactly happened there.
Superb.
And it's delivering, and it's also recognizing that it's not about the great for them. It's not about the great matches. That's kind of irrelevant. It's about the spectacle. It's about the story. It's about the intertwining stories as well. I think the level of storytelling, which is the thing that they're managing to do, about just weaving all of these threads. As much as I may have problems with the stories, and I generally agree with you when it comes to stuff about regarding Survivor Series and Bloodline, but they're in the way that they interweave all of these characters. And it feels like it's that rising tide is lifting up all ships. Everybody is meaning something. And the last time we kind of saw that was the last big boom period for them, which was the Attitude Era. Now, this isn't doing the same kind of ratings, but from a financial perspective, and for that audience that loves WWE, it's doing fan service in a way that you should do.
A lot of disrespect for the ruthless aggression here, there, JP. But
sorry,
we'll let it go. Speaking of fantastic WWE products that you are a big fan of, JP, NXT.
Yes, NXT. Oh my God, I'll never live it down. That statement on there. It's what's happened. It's fallen below 600,000 viewers overall. The key demo down as well, 0.13, and that. Down from 0.15 the week before. And, you know, it's going to be up. Apparently, CBS was the top network of the night with airing FBI International, and FBI Most Wanted. So if you are a fan of the Fed, ironically, you probably needed to be at CBS as well, as much as anything, because they had plenty
Guido
of
and the lads doing well. Good to see.
Yeah,
drawing more than Eric Bischoff, apparently. Who's also on MLW this week. That's so weird that he did an NXT and he's on MLW this week. I feel like Court Power planned that.
Oh yeah. He's no fool. Is caught on this way as well. But I think what's happening with the CW is that it hasn't got the same cachet as a USA network, clearly, and it's hitting the level that it should be at. However, I think the thing that they're going to be happy with is that it's beating Dynamite. So from that kind of bragging rights perspective, that's what I think they are perfectly happy with that. I think CW are happy with that because by all accounts, they're not getting anything close to those kind of ratings for anything else they have there on that station. So they'll look at that as money well spent. And it just broadens them out to a different place, doesn't it? It's a bit, again, ratings not necessarily to shout home about, but overall pretty decent.
They'd have been happy with that a couple of years ago, so is what it is. We'll talk more the pay-per-view when we get to the preview sections, but the few quick other WWE notes. Update on the Rock. This coming from Fightful Select, and obviously they've noted that WWE are putting together creative plans on the assumption now that the Rock won't be at WrestleMania, although there is obviously they'd be happy to take him if he did turn up. Apparently he's going to be filming something around the time of WrestleMania, but obviously they'll take him if they can have him. I don't really know if that's necessarily a news story. It's like Dave Meltzer's one this week about New Japan contracts coming up in January. Or like him, have you noticed that he had another reference this week, wheeling out the GRAPPL app to back himself up on some match rating, and it was like, Dave, even we don't talk about the app anymore. It's gone, mate. Let it go. Like, it's brilliant. I think he thinks the app's still going. I'm pretty sure he does. He's the one person still on there inputting ratings about as although he doesn't watch old wrestling, does he, Dave? So you're not getting that out of him.
I thought it was interesting on the Survivor Series review that you and Matty did. You were talking Cononomics, weren't you, with the polls that he did, particularly in relation to like Shinsuke Nakamura defeating LA Knight. I was thinking about
people know what to do. The Continental Classic, we'll be talking that later as well. Some good predictions in there as well. But it's kind of no news here for the Mania main event. It's like the Punk and Seth stuff on Raw. Like I said this on the Discord. I just think it's too. They haven't got the material for Punk and Seth to run from now till Mania for me. I feels like a Rumble match, which makes me think, what's Punk doing at Mania? What's Dwayne doing at Mania? If he does come in, well, it's probably Cody, isn't it? But if he's not involved, what's Cody doing at Mania? I think they'll just do Gunther. I think they'll maybe do Gunther Punk, and they'll do Roman Cody 3. Like, it's Triple H. You've got to think, like you said, then it's the competence era. What's the most boring competent thing you could do? Just put Roman versus Cody against each other again and print money. Like, that's what Triple H will do. It won't be as interesting as Punk versus Roman and Cody versus, I don't know, Cena or something like that. It'll be that. If Dwayne's not around, I expect that for the Mania main events. I guess you might get an outside if Roman is left on the outside of a Cody and Dwayne match. Maybe you end up with something like Roman versus Punk. But even then, I think it'd be like Roman versus Solo, and he'll save Roman versus Punk for a rainy day, and it'll come in like 2 years. That's my expectation anyway.
Yeah, it's a fun. I expect Rock to be there. If Dwayne isn't there, I'd be astonished. If only because Dwayne's got points in the game, literally. It's in his own vested interest for him to kind of turn up and do that. And it's, he only needs to turn up for one of the nights. He doesn't even need to be there for both of them, and that'll work all right for him. So I think, I can't see a world where he's not there. The wild card for me in this is, where do you put Cena? Just because of the retirement tour and everything else, it's just like, where's
and also there's crap now. Knows that too. He's not very good anymore. You always got to hide him. Like, I think I love the idea of Cody versus Cena just for the promos and just for the like Homelander versus Homelander thing you could do with it. But then the bell would ring, wouldn't it? And Cena's forgotten how to bump and walk and cover up his bald spot and just work out, and he's just not Cena anymore, is he? Like, as soon as like the bell rings, it's like, oh fucking hell! It's like watching a celebrity, like from the bad days though, not Logan Paul, like someone crap. Like it's odd.
Could you see Cody repeating the "I'm sorry, I love you" spot of Michael's Flair?
I'd enjoy that. That could be his heel.
I'm sorry, I want to be you.
The great irony: Cody turns on Cena rather than Cena ever turning. I'd enjoy that. Wait another year for that. Maybe do it as he retires.
But what's incredible about it, you just mentioned very briefly about the Mania options there, is that there are options. Now, in previous years, they would have been like, we have to deliver on this, or we don't really have anything at all. They are at a point where they've built kind of enough people that you can, and trilogy matches, if you think about UFC, you think about boxing, they're all the rage. People are fine with that kind of extended if they've gone 1-on-1, and for Cody and Roman, that you're saying that this is the rubber match. That's the kind of thing that kind of works for them. So I think they'd be happy with that in the main.
Just throwing it up because you had it on as a news story later on. Like, I suppose the Rumble odds give an indication. Rock up 5-2, according to is it Paddy Powder coming from 2025 Men's Rumble winner? Punk 4-1, Cena 4-1, Roman's 10-1. That's quite surprising. Rollins 16-1. Get your money on now. Lump on main event Jey Uso if you're Matty. Put your money where your mouth is. 18-1. Put a tenner on that. It'd be sound. You could pay me £3 back. It'd be brilliant. Gunther 20-1. Drew 25-1. I'd put a quid on Drew at 25-1. Might get in on this. So there's no real indication. It shows you there's no like outright favourite though. It shows you, as Matty has rightly been saying, it's very unclear what's actually the path going to be. But it's usually laid out by now, and it's not clear at all.
There is a potential for the Rumble to have a final 8 or so where you can make an argument. You have to be a very quick argument because it's a Rumble match, but the final 8 or so could be people you could make an argument for any one of them could win it. And you could have whoever is the Iron Man in there as well at the same time and things like that. There's a load of interesting things that you could do for it. I mean, The Rock winning would be the most Dwayne thing in the world, wouldn't it? Have himself come in and win it.
That was another Meltzer quote this week. If you knew why Dwayne did that appearance in the entranceway at the last pay-per-view, people would be very angry. I don't know what he meant. What do you mean? Why would be angry? What? Politics, probably, I assume. And yeah, according to these odds, and they could either come from betonline.ag. I think they sponsor our friends over at Fightful. Becky Lynch 2-1. Charlotte Flair 11-4 in the women's. Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair around the same odds as well. Jade Cargill 6-1. Depending on what's happening over there. Who knows? No odds for Big Jim, unfortunately, Pat, in the men's. What a shame.
Sad for that. I expect Becky Lynch to win. I mean, she's doing the thing that we would have all expected. I fully expected to be on that first episode of Raw on Netflix. That feels like it's the perfect kind of launching point for her to come back, if she wants to come back this early on there. But somebody's definitely going to be there. You've got the story up there on screen, is Gunther. He's definitely going to be around the place. Old 20-1 Gunther. He has finalized a new multi-year deal with WWE. This is according to both PW Insider and Fightful. It is multi-year contractual agreement. Charlie's not happy about it. He's at a kick-off there in the background. They're in final stages of completing the deal. It's expected to be completed by the end of 2024. I mean, you look at the success story, and I do think for us, there's a lot of stuff that we get right, but we were saying as soon as he went to Gunther, it's like, nope, this is going to end in absolute tears and him being released.
Can we delete the episode?
He's fucking succeeded. He's been a massive success story for them.
Massively.
As well, and he's going to be earning that big money. And there's nothing. I know a lot of the backstage stuff that's said about him is that people think that he is great. He's like, his stature within the company is really, really high. The fact that we're talking about him getting he's getting a big Mania match, whether it's headlining on one night of Mania, is going to be really the big question.
One of the most protected, best pushed acts in WWE. Damn, I'm agreeing with Matty again. But it was a note I had on Raw. Like, they did a whole thing where Dominic and Finn Balor were trying to challenge him backstage. And Finn Balor was trying to challenge him backstage, and Dominic ended up talking his way into the match. And instead of it being very WWE, great, I'll see it out there in the ring. Like, Gunther's like, all right, I think I've got enough power and sway here. I'm going to go speak to Adam Pearce. I'll see you later in the ring. And it was just that, that added step of, I'm actually going to go and speak to the person in charge. I'm going to make it happen. That wasn't what was written. And he was like, I'm just going to add this little bit, because he's still Gunther. He's still Walter at heart, and he still wants the world that's at least around him to make sense, even if the rest of the bigger WWE world doesn't make sense. And somehow he's carved that little corner for himself in WWE. It's unbelievable, to be honest, that it's even happened. But there we go. Yeah.
And here we go. Another story on here as well, and it has to be noted: Moana 2, starring The Rock. You're welcome. Well, they're welcome because they've made $225 million over the 5-day Thanksgiving opening weekend on there as well.
Thought he was dead at the box office. What's going on?
Do you know what? It's less about him, and it's just more about the fact that it's Moana 2. And family films make a shitload of money. You look at number 1 and 2 at the box office, in particularly in the US, but globally as well. It's Moana 2 and it's Wicked. And those are broad films entitled, designed to appeal to like enormous audiences with an inbuilt audience for both of them as well. Made 164 million internationally, so 389 million worldwide in 5 days. Be over a billion. Ironically, The Rock's other film, Red One, which has been a complete fucking disaster. Although it's going to be on Amazon Prime, I think. Is it just before Christmas? It's going to be going on to there. So at some stage, I'll be made to watch it.
He was bragging about that on Instagram still. About that still doing great.
It's in the US about 71 million, 148 millions worldwide. Cost $250 million is how much that film cost.
It's so shit because, like, I mentioned before, because I was away in America and I've not been ordering as much over the last few months. Uber Eats is trying to win me back, JP. They're trying to win me over. Send me 2 free cinema tickets today. 2-3 codes for the Odeon. I went on the Odeon website, like, all right, let's see what I'm going to go see. I'll go find something. It's nothing really. It looks shit. Like, I don't know if there's anything good coming out soon, like Oscar season. Surely it's going to be something. But yeah, I was like, it did actually pop up, Red One, and I was like, I'm not going to see Red One, even for this podcast. That will not be the Christmas Film Club. I can promise you that. Nope. We're not doing Red One. Dwayne Film Club came and went. Not happening.
It did. Yeah, fuck that. No, I don't even want to see it. And I will end up watching it because I'll end up watching it with the kids. That'll be the thing. I could see myself easily watching it on like Christmas Eve because it's there.
Pirated coffee, yeah. You know, you're paying for it though, or leaving your house for it. Like that's what So I need to click this. Fightful have got a story. Related article. I don't know how it's related. Eric Bischoff set to debut the 83-week scales at MLW One Shot. What are the 83-week scales?
I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking
HLA
of the Miss. Or is it Miss NWO all over again?
Did you get this press release in your emails, JP? I presume you did.
I do.
Oh, you still get
the well cheap for MLW, like $10 a fucking ticket. And I was like, well, I'm still not going. I don't live in the fucking US, mate. But I appreciate you sending it to me twice.
I still get emails from Gabe Sapolsky because, I don't know, data protection didn't exist in the ROH days, because I'm pretty sure he just stole the ROH mailing list and started using it for Evolve and WWN and stuff. And every now and then, when he's running some kind of training class somewhere, I'll just get a random email from Gabe. Nice to know I'm still on the list there somewhere. Well, that literally comes from back in those days. Jesus. But yeah, Kurt's got you on his equivalent list. We'll be talking some more MLW in a while. Jesus Christ. But speaking of MLW adjacent companies, JP.
Yeah, exactly. TNA, they're going for it in 2025 as AEW looks to scale back their arenas. TNA have gone, well, fuck that. Instead, they're holding pay-per-views in both LA and New York in there. So they're going to be at Rebellion 2025. It's not even like they're really big shows, not Bound for Glory, but that's going to be at the Galen Center in Los Angeles.
The UBS Arena, I've been there. Sorry, I've jumped ahead to Long Island. Jesus. I was expecting, I was going to make a joke about, it won't really be New York. It's still not really New York, Long Island, but yeah, UBS Arena. I saw AEW half fill that. TNA? Really? That's where Forbidden Door was? Jesus Christ.
Absolutely insane, isn't it? For that, I mean, I think if you're looking at the Galen Arena, that holds for basketball, sort of 10,000 plus. For that, 8.5 for ice hockey, but obviously the floor can't be used for that, and you need more of the floor than you do for basketball as well. UBS, I think that holds somewhere in the region, is it 13,000 for that? That's the one in Long Island.
There weren't that many there when I was there, mate. I promise you that. Me and Papa Briscoe, we had a few seats to ourselves.
I mean, I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, for example, they're not selling those out. That's just not happening at this point in time. But for the
Joe Henry still a thing? I'm not sure he is.
Well, he was doing a fucking Feast or Fired match, I think, wasn't he? A Turning Point or something along those lines, which seems like incredible that they would do that there as well. Yeah, it's Jesus Christ. The UBS Arena holds 19,000 for concerts. So, the tarpaulin salesman will be doing great business that night as well. But yeah, that's what they're doing. They're making a big kind of go for those. These are for the proper pay-per-views. These not for the TNA Plus shows that they do. I think the last one, Turning Point, was actually linked in with a convention, so they probably had a decent deal because it looked pretty. Next week. Yeah, it looked pretty kind of small scale with that as well. But this is on the back of the last two pay-per-views doing really good houses. Now, the problem is I think there's unique circumstances for kind of both of them and much smaller crowds. What was it? 4,000 in Montreal, and that's because PCO is a hell of a fucking marketer. I don't know how he does it, and cheap tickets. That always helps. And they did similar to that in when they were in Detroit for Bound for Glory, and they did around 4,000 there as well. Also cheap tickets, but it's Detroit Terry's home, old Rhino. So yeah, it'll be. I admire the attempt. I don't. If they're relying on WWE sending a big name for them, yeah. Well, if you consider Lola Vice a big name, because that's as big a name as you're getting for that, you're not even getting fucking Trick Williams. Like, I wouldn't even hold it. Getting someone like that in there, it's going to be like, you know, NXT level up style kind of people. And I don't know if they're planning on bringing in some big free agent signing. I admire the ambition. I'm not remotely convinced that they're going to be able to do anything near the kind of numbers to kind of make it look spectacular. But I admire the ambition.
Well, on that note, yeah, good luck to TNA. Yeah, will they get generic Braun number 3, as Platt says here? The jury is out. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our non-AEW news and brings us to kind of the main event of this weekend show, JP, because the previews aren't up to much, but there's a couple of notable ones we'll get into. But yeah, let's talk some AEW, and before we get into their news headlines, let's start with, as we have started doing, with a bit of Dynamite. Continental Classic continued on, JP. You know, the Continental Classic, it's very, very important. You know, no opening ceremony, no like big deal made of the fact that Okada was just giving his belt up. Just matches have started happening on AWTV. I don't know whether you've noticed or not. Pretty good matches, but not great matches. To that point, actually, yeah. How have you found it? How have you found keeping up with AEW during your little sabbatical here? Like, I can't imagine without a podcast to motivate you. It's been easy throwing on these AEW shows, or have you been?
Spoiler alert, it's not been easy. It really hasn't. It's been like, there was it was 2 weeks ago when it was like, I was watching it because I was like up and silly o'clock, and so I just sort of put it on, and I found myself going, fuck me, I'm bored and I can't fall asleep because I've got a newborn baby in my arms. Like, Jesus Christ, like, what is this that I'm watching? I'm not really impressed by it. What I would say, as much as the matches have been generally fine, and I wouldn't sort of go more than that, what the Continental Classic did last year was kind of add a bit of structure and normalcy to a show that kind of needed it, rather than these wacky kind of intermittent segments. And at least the Continental Classic adds that into the mix. I'm kind of grateful for it in that way. And it's not that the matches themselves, I thought this week were generally fine, even if the main event and the opener had kind of the same finish again. A problem that they've historically,
cowardly finish in both cases as well. Because I thought, I mean, briefly, I thought Dynamite was pretty good. Yeah, good. Pretty good again this week. Kind of same review I'd give last week's, where it was like just thankful that it wasn't as bad as the week before or the week before that. The thing that this week's Dynamite had going for it, though, compared to last week's Dynamite and most of the Dynamites and Collisions recently, is I had the crowd that were invested and were up for it, and where most of the things on the show were actually over, which felt like a big sea change. So that's always going to be a thumbs up. So I think overall a thumbs up Dynamite. But yeah, the two Continental Classic, if we start with the Continental Classic, yeah, they kind of bookended the show, didn't they? Yeah, like, it's just like, I don't know, like, I just kind of feel like, does Tony Khan, is he a fakey? Is he a pretender, JP? Because he claims to be this fan that like is one of us and that wants to recreate the great wrestling tournament of the past and wants to do all these things of wrestling glory and bring prestige back to things like this, and then does he really show it in his booking? Because, like, as always, the Continental Classic is missing very many names because conveniently they're needed for other programs. Like, why isn't Hangman Page in it? Because he's in another program. Why isn't Jay White in it? Because he's in another. There's not really more of an explanation than that. And there's a lot, obviously adding, Penny to Commander to it this week as a, in place of Juice Robinson, kind of just shows you the level of the people that are in this. You'll get some good matches out of them, but that's kind of it. But I think my bigger criticism is, like, if Tony Khan is one of us and has watched all these tournaments over the years, like, surely he recognizes that, like, good wrestlers can just beat each other. Like, you don't need slip on a banana peel finishes. You don't need I think the most egregious to me was Kyle Fletcher and Shelton Benjamin, because I'll say firstly, gotta say positive. I really enjoyed that match. I still really like Shelton Benjamin. Don't know what's going on, JP. I'm getting old. My taste is changing. I don't know, but I very much enjoyed it. I like the mini Bobby Lashley, if you can call him mini, that Shelton Benjamin's kind of been in this little role, and they played it well. It's heel versus heel, and another problem of Dynamite has at the minute is like it's a lot of heels, a lot of tweeners, and a lot of shades of grey baby faces. It's a lot of just moodiness up and down the card, and opening with a heel versus heel match doesn't subtract from that moodiness, but the actual work in it was well done, considering they were put in that position, and you have to be in a tournament like this. Though Kyle Fletcher played like the Weasley heel, with Shelton being just a bit stronger and therefore de facto babyface, because at some point her business is gonna have to turn face because people are just gravitating towards them in that way. Shelton Benjamin in 2024. So that was all well done. It was just a finish where it's like, come on, Tony, do you have to? Do you have to? Because it misses the point of this Kyle Fletcher character. Isn't the point of Kyle Fletcher that he beat Will Ospreay? Like, he beat Will Ospreay, and he was the better man on that night. And he has those bragging rights, and he put Ospreay in the ground in a very, very, very definitive win. And to beat Shelton Benjamin, he needs to grab the ropes. Like, he should just beat him. If he's going to beat him, beat him. Like, Shelton Benjamin can beat someone else. That's how tournaments work, Tony. Like, it's fine. And the same thing, you're right to point it out. That was the other note I had. Same thing in the main event. Claudio and fucking Brody. Like, really? Like, do we need to protect Brody? Like, just have Claudio win. The better man won. Who cares? Like, it's a tournament. Like, let's condition people to know that people can win and lose in these tournaments. Like, and both matches were good. They were. I don't want to come across too moany on it, because they were enjoyable matches. All the matches on Dynamite, to be honest, outside of the one women's match on the show, were good matches. It was a solid in-ring Dynamite, and actually an inoffensive out-of-ring Dynamite compared to the offensive Dynamites we've had a few weeks past. But yeah, it's funny you mention it, because that was kind of what I was thinking, that copycat finish in both just wasn't needed.
And the thing about this is they've created the Continental Classic because they want their own G1, and in G1s, big stars lose all the time. In fact, they often lose at the beginning, because then you create the story of them having to win in order to catch up, which then in and of itself generates the heat. And that's what you kind of want, is you've got people who take people by surprise, and it adds that element of realism. If you're doing fucking nut shots while holding Bryce Remsburg, you're just like, oh my God, here we go again. And I was just like,
it feels like completely separate to the rest of the match. Like, it just, it's unnecessary. Tom says here, maybe it's because I had no expectations for Shelton Benjamin, maybe, but like, it's the way he's carrying himself and the way he's working these matches as like a bigger man is maybe what I wasn't expecting out of him. I'm liking that.
I wonder whether or not it's also the fact that he realised this is the last big run. This is the last big substantial run that he's really going to be able to have. Like, after this, there's potential WWE appearances or whatnot down the line, but this is the last kind of big substantial thing that he can ever do on national TV. And he's putting in a shift, which, it's only taken the bloke 20 years. So, like, fair play to him for that as well. But it's just, I thought the crowd, like you say, the crowd for me were just so much better from the last couple of weeks. And it wasn't like a massive crowd, like 3,000 just looking on WrestleTix for it. But the way they responded for Brody, who is someone who I've been saying for quite a long time, is like, it's the thing that I'm noticing is it's the responses to a lot of the fresher faces, the people who haven't had that WWE exposure, like a Kyle Fletcher, like a Brody King, where I think people are more gravitating of like, oh, okay, yeah, they're willing to get behind someone like that. I really want to see Brody King have a good, proper run in this as like this proper dark horse figure that could do something. I want to see that happen, and to mirror the incredible match he had at Wrestle Dream with Will Ospreay, Kyle Fletcher, and the performance he put in there, where I'm not fully convinced but he's so young. But I also just think, no, you've just kind of got to go with him. You need to kind of like make that effort to do that. And it feels like they're actually doing that with him to a degree. And he feels like he's a big part of it. Unfortunately, it leaves poor Mark Davis he was just a bloke in a battle royal.
That's fine.
Saudi.
He's just a bloke, isn't he? I thought you were going to say it was Paul Takeshita, because that's my Where's Takeshita? Why is he not in this tournament? I thought he was supposed to be the crown jewel of this stable. Oh, well.
If it was a G1 as well, that's what it would be. You should, if you did it, I mean, all they had to do was directly copy it. 2 blocks, whoever wins it, it's like, okay, you've won this, and then you're going to challenge for the world title at some point, but you made that effort to kind of build up. They could have just done that.
There aren't as much stakes this year because everyone knows what the Continental. It's funny, like there was some argument on the Discord this week about, like, you know, whenever everything AEW does, they get criticized, and there's some truth in that. But I think it's because no one's got any faith in AEW, and like the conversation was mostly around like the formatting of this thing, and like, you know, remember last year I was saying this when they had a Dynamite, basically the blue and gold blocks were a Dynamite and Collision block, and like 3 weeks in, it got too hard, so we just started mixing them up. Like this year, it's all over the fucking show because we just can't plot 5 weeks of TV out and be strict with it. Or imagine this, Paul Connor putting together his pick'ems. Imagine we knew all the matches and we knew when they were taking place, and we could, again, if Tony Khan's a true geek, we could fantasize and fantasy book them. Imagine that could be a world we'd live in, but it's not an organized world that AEW exists in, unfortunately. But yeah, definitely some positives there. In ring as well, though, Pac and Jay White was a good little match. Again, they worked hard for it. It felt like the crowd were mostly into it towards the end. And yeah, I think, you know, we've obviously we're always praising Pac on here, and I'm, like I say, with Jay White, busted record on him as a face, but the work he continues to do, in spite of maybe my criticisms, is admirable. Like, he works hard for the reactions that he does eventually get. You've got to take your hat off to him. Good match, but was mostly background for the post match, obviously, with Hangman, Orange Cassidy coming out, which, you know, as Patrick said, I would have Orange Cassidy, you know, returning to Dynamite, being a more prominent role. Maybe the end of the show might have been the right place for that to happen. But clearly we're building towards some kind of 4-way, aren't we? With Hangman, Orange Cassidy, and Moxley and Jay White involved as well. But yeah, did you have any thoughts on the match or the post match there?
Thought the match was good. Again, I've really enjoyed Jay White. And I think we would say this about him when he was in New Japan. It's just like our problem was with New Japan at that point in time. It's like he's not fit for that. For US TV, he is more of a fit. And he is, in terms of the work of getting him over as a face, which I know is a very valid criticism that you've had of that. It feels like it is getting there. It's not going to be there. We're not there yet. But it's definitely, we're working towards that, and we are progressing, and he is meaning something. It's just the fact that we're building up to an obvious 4-way. I mean, in some ways, what I would want is it to be like, no, it's going to be one of the 3 of you, and then whatever other states are going to be there. And it's like Hangman Page. It's just like the crowd want to cheer him. They don't want this like, they don't want a heel version of Hangman Page. And you know, they all got to hit their moves on him and everything else. I thought in and of itself, I thought it was fine, even if Death Riders as a stable are kind of like, I don't know, they just feel like that. The whole sort of strength of that angle is, well, it never really existed in the first place. I thought it could be saved, but now it's just
points
like
of it on the pay-per-views. Like on the pay-per-views, when they're allowed to go a little bit more violent, it all of a sudden looks a little bit more lively. On Dynamite, it's just heel beat downs after heel beat downs, isn't it? Why isn't Pac in the Continental Classic? I don't know why anyone's in or isn't. You don't get qualifiers and to Ramans, but yeah, you know, we were explaining rule changes during the opening match. And it's like, you know, we were saying before about like the plotting of it, and there's like we're gonna get to previews in a bit. There's Rampage matches, even though Rampage is about to die. They're throwing Continental Classic matches on there because the planning just isn't there, and they clearly haven't. You know, yes, there's a collision that's about to happen that's at a convention. Well, why is there a collision in a convention in the only 5 weeks where you have the Continental Classic? Like maybe plan around these things. Like, you know, it's a bit like the other thing on this show. It's like the Dynamite dozen battle royal, where it's like, it doesn't feel like every year it's like just randomly on a Dynamite you'll find out, oh, that's tonight. It's like in Tony Khan's head, it's treated like this great tradition that we have on Dynamite every year. Does anyone know when it is or when it's coming or anything? No. Is anyone ever prepared for it? No. Is it a big deal? Obviously not. It's a fucking battle royal with again a rando assortment of characters in there that for some reason cared about this ring. That's just AEW in it. It's thrown together and unorganized. It's very much 2010s WWE in that regard.
Yeah, it was very much filler for the middle of the show, and because it's a battle royal, they're kind of generally inoffensive. Although Brian Cage is wanting to look like an ultra hench Hugh Jackman thing, I found incredibly distracting throughout it, particularly when he's up against Adam Cole, who just looks like a bloke, just this bloke who's appeared there, who's got long hair, who a lot of the crowd still seem to like. And my heart fucking sank at the end. I went, "Oh God, it's him and O'Reilly
It's
for the
nice
right."
Nice and coincidental, isn't it? That they've been
MJF.
telling this story that Cole and Riley both want to get their hands on MJF. And guess what? We have this battle royal where, guess what? There's two winners, and guess what? They have to wrestle each other next week because they were the only two people of interest in that battle royal, unless you count Evil Uno doing shit comedy spots. Fire that man, Tony Khan. Yeah, it's just shit. It's all shit. It is shit. Like, if even the people who think we're too negative on AEW will agree with us, this story is shit. Adam Cole staring at his hands, wondering why he now has to be violent towards Kyle O'Reilly next week. Like, who wants that? Who cares? Why is he bothered? Just wrestle Kyle O'Reilly, have a match with him. You broke his jaw once, or he broke your jaw. I can't remember which way around it was. Like, just have a match. Why is it so fucking... Why are we crying over it? One of you will fight MJF, brilliant, and then we'll all move on. MJF's not going to kill him. Like, so? Like, it's so strange. It's so shit. It's so uninteresting.
We've fucking seen this.
Yeah.
We saw this in NXT. It felt like it went on for years.
It did.
In NXT.
It did. Because that was 7 years ago, or whatever it was. 6 years ago, I think. Yeah.
Oh, my God. I remember seeing it on fucking Wrestle Kingdom. Those two have a match for the Ring of Honor title. Yep. For fuck's sake. I was just looking at this and I was going, oh, my God. Like, we're back to this. It was the one part of the show where I was like, oh, God, it took me back to like a couple of weeks ago. The one part of the show I was like, oh, that's where I'm at. And so, yeah, I for the right to lose to MJF in some fucking screwy finish at World's End.
At least MJF's promo wasn't like where they all pretended. Although it still had that same problem. Like, I have the fixes and out. Yeah, I just know Tom Martin too well. He is going to moan about this because, like, the MJF stuff where he's like appearing on screen, Adam Cole has to pretend it's like a live stream, is just fucking shit. So this week I was kind of glad the MJF promo, it's a couple of segments after this, but again, it's clearly not live. So why does MJF know that Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly won that battle royal? Did he make different versions of the tape? Like one where it was like, Evil Uno, I'm gonna see you versus Adam Cole next week, and the winner is gonna face me. Like it's so shit in it, and so phony and so fake and so fucking MJF build. It's like, just tell him no every now and again, Tony. It's so bad. Like, I can't.
I'm gonna kangaroo kick you, Mark Davis.
Maybe he did make 20 versions. Maybe he did. But at least it wasn't live. I'll take the small mercy. That's all right. Yeah. Positive on the show. I enjoyed Swerve and Max Caster.
Yes.
Nice, real, definitive win again for Swerve. Your big stars should be having definitive wins. I wish Dynamite was built around Swerve, Ospreay, and Hangman having definitive major league segments every week. This maybe wasn't a priority on the show this week as it was a bit of a back burner to the other stuff. But yeah, Swerve making clear he's still coming for Lashley like that. And Caster's hateable enough as an undercard heel. I just hope he doesn't join the hurt business and drag them down. Outside of that, though, thought it was a good little bit of business.
Yeah, I was so happy this was 2 minutes long and not 10 or 50-50. And I just
not everyone has to.
Yeah, which is like, because quite often when I watch those matches, like, can we just cut to the bit with the person who's obviously going to wins? Because I'm just bored of this, and that's kind of how I felt when I saw like Anna Jay, Penelope Ford. It's like Penelope Ford is there to lose. We don't need to drag this out for any longer than it needs to be. And this didn't. And I don't think Max Caster loses anything, because the whole point at this stage as an undercard heel is for him to piss off the crowd, but he needs to adapt his raps like desperately. Okay, this surely now is the last Joe/Hunter Biden reference I ever need to hear from him. I am bored of that stuff. But also, at the same time, he needs to be slagging off the people who are there. It's the easiest form of cheap heat that he can do, and he needs to get into that. And then do whatever they're going to do with him in the meantime. I mean, yeah, I don't want him to be part of the Hurt Business, though. I want EJ and Duke in there instead. I don't fucking want...
They're not turning face if Max Caster's in them, is he? But
nope.
We'll see. Other notes on Dynamite, Bandido promo aired. Again, a bit odd because it was very cowboy build and it was like, is that a Hangman promo? No, it's Bandido. But good. He's one of them. AEW's got so much. AEW, like as dead as it feels at times, you have to remind yourself it's got one of the world's greatest rosters of all time. And Bandito works for this company still, and I'd forgotten. Like that's how like, and obviously he's been injured, but like I'd just forgotten he even was employed. If you told me he was, a free agent and he worked for MLW, I might believe it at this point. But crazy, isn't it?
I had Ian Wright appearing in my head, walking in the football stadium. First saw the poster, I thought you were dead. Just what I was expecting.
It's one of those heartwarming pieces of footage. I love that.
Was it Joe who remembers him going for a massive shit in Bowlers Convention Hall? Wasn't
right.
He was banned in full on with the mask, wasn't he?
Oh no, Bandito. No, I went in the toilet and Bandito was just in there with his mask off, having a piss, like, and just walking around taking photos with people. That it was almost like like you think you've like I've done this before. Like, where's my hat? Oh, I'm wearing it. Like it was the opposite, where it was like he probably thought he had his mask on, and he just didn't. He's just wandering around, like just taking pictures with fans and stuff. Great experience. But yeah, he's coming back. Mercedes cut another appalling promo on the show, like sub NXT level. She fit in over there. I'm not on team send her back. I'm still on team. She works for you. She's still got some star power. She still can deliver in ring, as we saw on the pay-per-view. You've got to do something. Every segment that airs, I'm like, maybe not. Maybe I should change my mind. She's rough.
I thought for a while, she just needs a heater. She just needs a big bodyguard. She got that, and that fucking royally fucked that up. And it's in this one now. I'm like, oh god, here we go again in there. As well as can anyone explain to me why is everybody gunning for Jamie Hayter all of a sudden? What war crime did she fucking commit?
They just don't like Scooby-Doo or people who dress like their 70s female movie stars. That looks awful. I'm not going to judge women's fashion. Like, I'm not a man to judge women's fashion. But it's the promo was all right. The promo was all right. I just kept looking at it and going, like, what are you wearing? What are you doing? Like, come on, this look since you've come back hasn't been it. I'm not a fan.
Not a fan of that, baby. To quote Austin Powers there as well.
It's very Austin Powers, yeah. The only other thing on Dynamite to mention, Hook and Christian had another segment. I'm not really massively into that program. Obviously, Christian's going to be somewhat involved in whatever this four-way ends up being as well. Just, it's one of them. It's like you've got to give some people chances on the microphone to get better. And I think I would critic the Kyle Fletcher promo about a month ago, which was on Dynamite, which I was hammering. To be fair, you've got to give guys like that a chance, and he's kind of shown that he can do more than we thought he could. Hook's shown us he can't promo. We know that. If he's going to cut promos, have him do it on MLW or fucking send him to GCW if there's a relationship blooming there. Send him to TNA, send him to Maple Leaf, put him on Rampage, let him promo there. He shouldn't be promo in the ring on Dynamite. That was my only note on that segment.
Nah. He should be Ring of Honor world champion. Just let him do that shit over there where no one cares, where you can hear the crowd going for a piss, shit, or a pint, depending on where they are at that point.
Good combination.
But at the same time. All of the same, exactly. The people at the bar get really upset though when you do that. I don't know why they do get really
Mark Davis and Zach Gibson. Yeah, they don't like that. Anyway. Well, moving on from there, some AEW news, unless you've got more thoughts on Dynamite, JP?
No, that's pretty... like you said, I thought it was I would probably say like a good / decent episode of Dynamite that was generally solid because it's got this Continental Classic, and they could really do with a women's one because that would actually massively help that side of the division, I think, even more so than the men. Because sometimes with the men's side of it, you do always wonder who's missing. And for the women's side, it could be breakout tournaments for a lot of people in there. A Willow run for something like that would work, I think, almost better than what you could do with any of the men.
That I can't see AEW with their Muckynomics doing that anytime soon, with where they put the women's segment. We can live in hope. But yeah, moving on from there, a couple of news stories from AEW, JP.
Yes, Ryan Nemeth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's all over the news, this lad, as well. He came out as a document obtained by Fightful. He sent a complaint to AEW executives about CM Punk harassment and threats. There was a lot of detail in this as well. Apparently, he was offered, if he signed a non-disclosure agreement, that if it would be like his salary for 3 years, because he was on like a paper appearance deal in there as well. But it was a timeline. It's a claim of emails, texts, phone call logs, other records to back all of this up on here. And he was ordered to verbally antagonize him on TV there as well. And yeah, which, you know, exactly, stir the fucking pot on here. There's a lot of conversations that he was having, not only with Mega Perek in there as well, but the Bucks and Schiavone showing him kind of empathy in there. Moxley saying to him outright that it didn't sit right with him there as well. And yeah, this is like, I mean, I don't know where this goes. I think I can tell you where it goes. It goes to out of court it goes to a settlement and him signing an NDA at some stage along there as well. My thoughts on this, particularly the idea of him being like, was it the softest man alive comment, wasn't it, that he made about CM Punk? Just like, this is part of the problem with that company. Is the idea is like, we want you to fucking wind up a bloke who does not like being fucking wound up in any way, shape, or form. Like, Jesus Christ, like, it's just childish shit, isn't it?
I saw the headlines and I thought there was going to be something more serious here. Obviously, you know, Punk threatened them backstage. That's not good. And you know, that's kind of it really, as far as like individual, or obviously the one that been reported about him being sent home. That was one obviously we knew about. I think the more concerning thing here, that's again not great. Don't want to come across as a Punk defender here. Not a good environment at all. And we talked about that at length at the time. I think it's more just the lack of response. Yeah, the fact that like, because Tony Khan is clearly at the time trying to appease Punk and try and keep him there. It is a HR nightmare, because wrestling, you know, doesn't really fit the normal societal norms, and like it puts HR in a position where clearly they're not even responding to him because they don't know what to do, because Tony Khan's clearly sided with CM Punk, or at least trying to make CM Punk happy at the time. And like, yeah, he's getting no response. He's scared he's gonna get sacked because he's not been on TV in all that time because of, you know, Punk sending him home. Like, that's what you create when you're doing that, when you're trying to, like, you know, save your big star in CM Punk. It does cause stuff like this. I think, I don't know, like, I understand, like, you know, people like roll their eyes when Ryan Nemeth comes up with stuff like this because he's got a history of coming up with stuff like this, but it's almost admirable, isn't it, that he is willing to stick his head up the parapet and publicly, you know, say things like this, like he did about, you know, what was Hugh Morris's real name, whatever, Bill DeMott, you know, way back in the day, and obviously actually had some negative things to say about Triple H when other people don't usually speak up about such things. He's outspoken, if nothing else, but yeah, doesn't paint it a pretty picture.
No, doesn't. It paints a picture also as well about Tony Khan as a guy who. So I think I heard the comment today of he's a guy who's never had to actually like apply for a job or earn the right to have a position. He's just been given a position. I feel like I am for that. Which again,
that's ever you said.
Like I agree when you spoke about that on the weekend show, and I was just thinking, why is Tony Khan even fucking acknowledging this shit? It's just like, you have better, more important things to do than fucking get wound up about that kind of shit. And it just adds, I suppose, to the overall narrative of just a complete lack of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that, I might as well mention it here, like one of the stories we had. Spoilers for ROH, everyone. Just so you know, spoilers for Ring of Honor. This GCW story that's been going on. They're bringing Matt Cardona in to face Chris Jericho at Final Battle. That is not a joke. That is a real thing. Matt Cardona, GCW wrestler, is coming in to face Jericho. It probably would have been more along of a work shoot if you brought in Effie, but Effie's fucking terrible, so I'm glad they haven't. Would have been better. They'd have brought in Ricky Starks. That'd actually be a good shout, wouldn't it? Maybe they could do something with him while he's under contract. How about they do that? But like, it just clearly that situation it wasn't a work. It absolutely wasn't, and Effie continues to say what Effie wants to say, and I've got no problem with it. I think if Effie wasn't Effie, if Effie wasn't one of the world's worst wrestlers working for, and I can say this as a former fan, one of the world's worst wrestling companies, and he wasn't one of the world's biggest fucking idiots, I think he's got every right to say what he said. Like, he has. Like, he doesn't run GCW. I think it's a more of an assessment to Tony Khan that he takes it so seriously that he said you know, some negative things about Tony Khan and about, like you said, he's never applied for a job. He hasn't. He's never. He hasn't. It's true. Like, he's a billionaire's son who has all the hang-ups of a billionaire's son. Like, Effie. I think it says more about Tony Khan than it does Effie that he's come out. And I think if it wasn't Effie, if it was a good wrestler who worked for a good company, people would not be on Tony Khan's side, because I think he comes across terribly in that whole story. That's just my view on it. However, they've either fixed it, or they're turning it into a work, or Jericho just does what Jericho wants. But I presume Zack Ryder's in to help, you know, soothe over that whole thing about Hammerstein and promoting the GCW show and all of that. And that's a nice outcome, if it is the outcome of a story that I don't think painted anybody well.
Yeah, and I hope that's the way they end up going.
On that note, another quick couple of AEW news. Ray Phoenix's AEW deal is expiring. We got a bit more detail on when that's expiring. I think that's an old story. I think we talked about that on Spotlight. Yeah, that his contract is extended into next year. So that's where we are with Ray Phoenix. Won't be joining Penta on SmackDown.
Have him lose to Bandito, mate, is what he'll be doing.
They could do that. Yeah, there we go. And apparently the plan for the AEW World Title at this point, as 411 tries to load, is the four-way.
It's the four-way.
We talked about there. So there we go. That's the other AEW news there as well. But on that note, JP, we should get into the previews. We'll start with Ring of Honor television, which we've just spoiled, so there's no point in watching it now, folks. These 37 matches, and it can be a waste of time.
Exactly, and all you need to know is a TV time with Chris Jericho segment that you know exactly how it ends. Outside of that, again, and I'm depressed mentioning his name, Katsuyori Shibata. Nothing else better to do for him. It's him versus Alex Reynolds. That fucker beef. He's on telly again with JD Drake in tag action. Good for him. Rachel Ellering, Trish Adora, Gates of Agony versus Preston Vance and Griff Garrison. Remember them? Yeah, they're still there. Harry Kane's still knocking around the place. Shane Taylor, Sean Dean, and Carly Bravo versus Top Flight and Action fucking Andretti, who was on that Battle Royal as well at the weekend. Billy Starks versus Lady Frost.
I've come back from the adverts and Action Andretti was sat in the corner. I honestly thought it was Ospreay. I was like, what the fuck's Ospreay doing in this with all these other jobs? It'd be fine if there were other main eventers in there, but it turned out to just be Action Andretti doing Ospreay cosplay. So there we go.
Yeah, doing usual old bollocks with that as well. But yeah, that's Ring of Honor this week. You don't need to see it. You know exactly the main thing that happened on it.
Interesting that Jericho's turned up for work. That he's actually going to be on an ROH TV show. So at least there's that. When is Final Battle? What's the date of it? I've actually got it on the calendar. That's a little interest I have in here.
I have a very quick look on here, but I mean, it's normally late. It's always been late December, isn't it? It's the
weekend. It's obviously the Manhattan Center, isn't it? So it's the weekend of those shows, whenever that is. But I think it's
December 20th.
Yeah, there we go, December 20th. We'll talk it at some point. Grappies. Well, just in time for the Grappies, JP, so we'll get it all in, of course. Important. On that note, Rampage, like I say, Continental Classic matches on Rampage this week. That is soon to be cancelled and nobody watches. Ricochet versus Commander, who is obviously taking the place of Juice Robinson. Beast Mortos versus Daniel Garcia and Mark Briscoe versus Kazuchika Okada. On the Collision side, we have Emi Sakura versus Mina Shirakawa, Sharina Deeb versus Willow Nightingale, Darby Allin versus Commander as well, Mark Briscoe versus Daniel Garcia, and Kazuchika Okada versus Kyle Fletcher. There's some strong in-ring matches there on Collision from Mark and can tell there.
I mean, Commander being on there just as a pin eater, while obviously he doesn't have the star power, I'm kind of in the main generally fine with that. If it, like I say, if it does the job that it did on Dynamite and just adds a bit of structure to those shows, particularly Rampage, at least there's a purpose of thinking on the way up to Birmingham, I might watch Rampage on the bus to kill an hour of time. There's a possibility of being able to do that.
Which is the easy pushback, isn't it? Why'd you put these matches on Rampage? Well, at least people will watch Rampage. Why do you want people to watch Rampage? It's cancelled. It's not going to be on in 2 weeks. Who cares? Why? But again, it's just bad planning. It's because they've got this convention show coming up and they need to get matches out and they need to break Connor's spreadsheet. It's turning into the Bound for Glory series, like the haves and have-nots of who's had 4 matches and who's had 1 match so far in this tournament. But yeah, the matches look good. It'll probably be a good in-ring Collision this week and probably a good in-ring Rampage at that as well. Absolutely.
And you never know, we might have a good in-ring TNA Impact as well,
We will.
which has probably not judging by this first match, for the World Tag Team Championships, the Hardys versus the System of Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards. Yeah, that lasted long, didn't it? The Good Hands, Jason Hotch and John Schuyler, who you wouldn't recognise if they lived in your house with you, versus PCO and Sami Callihan. X Division title #1 contender match, Trent Seven versus JDC versus Kushida versus Leon Slater versus Ace Austin. Getting some bookings over there now, isn't he, Leon Slater? He's got to build up for his 60 yeah, exactly. 60-minute Iron Man match as well. But yeah, seems to be making a pretty decent enough impression there. Nick Nemeth speaks. I thought he could anyway. I don't know if that was a thing. I mean, maybe he'd had paralysis of the throat for a couple of weeks before. But yeah, apparently he's talking. Mike Santana, Steve Macklin, Eric Young, and Jonathan Gresham versus Frankie Kazarian and the Northern Armory team of Josh Alexander, Judas Icarus, and Travis Williams. Josh Alexander, obviously, he's on his way out when his contract's up in February. So that's TNA Impact.
Nice. And yeah, SmackDown obviously coming up on Friday as well. We don't know much about it really. Follow up to Bloodline stuff is advertised. Don't know who's actually going to appear and who's not out of that. But yeah, follow up to Survivor Series. Apparently we're going to get on SmackDown, as well as that Naomi versus Tiffany Stratton versus Elektra Lopez. And that's it. That's all they've announced so far. So we'll see what that fallout entails. Did you see that Kevin Owens and Cody segment? We didn't talk about it on Spotlight. Really good.
I didn't.
Owens has been great. Owens has been that justified heel thing where he's even leaning into the fact that he wasn't on War Games. It's like, I think you would get cheered. It's good stuff. He's doing very well at building that match. Good stuff. So maybe they'll be follow up with that.
Yeah, you'd imagine they're always wonderfully vague with these SmackDown previews, aren't they?
It's like almost like Tony Khan. They make it up on the day. But yeah, past that, does WWE PLE this weekend? Because apparently there's something called WWE Deadline taking place. So is this what you mean, the rebranding? It was NXT Deadline, now it's WWE Deadline. All right, okay.
Which they said on Survivor Series. They were like WWE Deadline. And obviously Cage Match has got it down as WWE Deadline.
Yeah.
And it feels like they're doing this is like what Tony Khan said about Ring of Honor. AEW presents Ring of Honor. It looks like they're just doing that with NXT, of just WWE NXT Deadline. So
it'll look better in the Netflix search, that type of thing. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. But yeah, taking place from the Minnesota Armory, your old haunt. Oh, is that where you are? That
this fucking place. It looks fucking awesome. I wish I could get this chair out of the way, but it's massive. But it does. It looks fucking great, this place.
Background, actually, it fits. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah,
I like it.
Looks great, and it looks like I'm off at a rave. I think somebody made in the comments earlier on.
It does. Well, taking place at that rave will be the NXT Underground match between Lola Vice and Jada Parker. Axiom and Nathan Fraser will be taking on the No Quarter Catch Crew, which is Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights. We got Ethan Page versus Wesley versus Eddie Thorpe versus Nathan Fraser versus Javon Evans for the NXT title #1 contendership Iron Survivor match. All those fucking things. Never like them. And in the women's #1 contendership Iron Survivor challenge match, we have Stephanie Vicker versus Julia versus Ren Sinclair versus Zarya versus Sol Ruka. And in the NXT title match, Trick Williams versus Ridge Holland. Where'd you start there, JP? What are you most excited for?
What am I most excited for? Well, this is the thing. If I remember rightly, and it's a real struggle too with NXT at times, those Iron Survivor challenge matches were not as bad as I thought they would be, because they're quite convoluted with the rules. I can't even bother to find them out, but they're not as bad as I thought they would be. And you generally are able to hide a few people in there as well. I mean, I think from this, if I'm thinking of like things that I like, I'm intrigued to see if they're going to end up sort of deciding to go with Stephanie Vicker versus Julia and the kind of split of those two and pushing them off in a singles direction as well. Axiom and Nathan Fraser have always been good value, I have to say, as a tag team. They've often been like in the high points of these types of shows on here. I don't think there's any saving grace of Ridge Holland. He's a big bloke who played rugby league, which they never fucking play into. They never mention the fact he played proper rugby league. Played like, the fucking Super League in the UK.
I remember Martin interviewed him, didn't he, on BWE when he was first signed?
Yeah, old Luke Menzies there as well. It feels like it's it just feels like they need an event for December, and they don't have a standard WWE PLE outside of Saturday night's main event, which is kind of taken over for that. So they've got this instead. But it's probably going to do well tickets wise. I'm just having a look at WrestleTix just to see how many it's sold. But it's hard to be excited by a lot of it. I'm not like optimistic. Oh yeah, this is going to be kind of great. I'll just see if I can find out exactly how many tickets they've sold on here at the minute. It's bloody hard to find. But yeah, what about yourself? Are you excited?
No. Sorry, I'm not going to buy you any time. I don't care.
It's all right, fair enough. Don't bother. I can't find out what's happening on here at all, so fuck it. We'll let it slide. They're not selling these many tickets. I'll be that amazed.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll watch some of that, the highlights of it, but yeah, I can't imagine we're stopping our night out to watch any of this. Maybe the Iron Survivor matches might be good. Like Platt says, yeah, the old Iron King of the Mountain Rumble match basically is what it is. Penalty boxes and all kinds. Proper stuff.
It's only like 2,000 tickets as of November fucking 29th. Jesus. Oh. That's bad for them. It must be quite small in there. It looks like they're fitting fucking 20,000 by the picture I've got.
Who can they have who's from Minnesota? Obviously, can't add Rick Rude or Mr. Perfect. Who can you add the
Nikita Koloff.
There you go.
Get him out there with an iron chain like he did at Super Brawl 2.
Wade Keller. You should book Wade Keller. He'd draw the crowd, I reckon. Minnesota. He's Minnesota, isn't he?
Yeah.
There you go. That could work. But yeah, I don't really have any thoughts outside of that. I don't know
cast of Fargo.
Names, JP. I don't know who these people are. Who's Miles Bourne? Like, wow. Who's Zarya? Mm-hmm. Sol Ruka. I feel like I've read that name a million times. Don't know what she looks like. Yeah.
Oh, not she's tall blondie one is what immediately comes to mind in there. Tavian Heights was in Noah's N1 victory tournament. He's the one who's got like a kind of I think he's got the same finisher that Shelton Benjamin does. Has with that kind of like suplex into a power slam type thing. I think he has that.
Trying to win me over with Shelton Benjamin facts. If you want to hear NXT breakdowns, Davey and Braden are your boys. Not me. I'll ask Davey tomorrow. I'll find out more about this card. Yeah, nothing else to say on it really. What else is going on, JP?
Well, you'll be incredibly excited to know it's the end of a tournament that you've been buzzing about because we are in tournament season, obviously. It's World Tag League.
The world has been buzzing, JP.
So, mate, exactly. I've honestly, I missed the birth of my child to watch some of this. That's how much into this tournament I am in there as well. Don't know who's in the final outside of one of the teams. That was today. They had finishing up. I want to say was it in the A block that it's finished now? Yes, it is, and it's Gabriel Kidd and Sonada. So they're going to be challenging for the tag belts. Obviously, Gabe Kidd's got the big match with Wrestle Dynasty against Kenny Omega on night 2, but it's him and Sonada on night 1 as a tag team. Fine, whatever. It doesn't make any fucking difference to me for that. But we have got instead,
Unless he gets his match with Randy Orton that he's trying to get on Twitter. The weird.
Good luck with that, mate. Randy's going to go nowhere fucking near him on that as well. But what we do have, though, is we've got tomorrow from, again, your old stomping ground from Deep Breath, Satsuma Sendai, Kagoshima, Japan, at the Kagoshima Sun Arena, Sendai. Yeah, honestly, that's the name of the place. Block B. Exactly. We've got Hiroshi Tanahashi and Jado versus House of Torture. No. LIJ, Hiromu, and Tetsuya Naito versus United Empire, who are the IWGP Tag Champs, by the way. That passed us by. The Natural Classics, the good old Aussie lads, Stevie and Tommy Philippe versus Just Four Guys team of Taichi and Taka Michinoku. And then we've got Oleg Boltin and Toru Yano versus TMDK. That's in that. I'm just going to have a look and see where those blocks are standing at the moment in terms of Block B. Well, Great Khan and Hanari are on 10. Yano and Oleg Boltin are on 8. Naito and Hiromu are on 8 as well. What's the chances that they face Sonada and Gabriel Kidd? And it's them that they end up winning it to get through to Wrestle Kingdom. And it's Naito and Hiromu, which I think I said on here was probably the path they're going to go down because it's a way of getting Naito on the card in a title match without having to do any single stuff.
Best you can do with him at this point, isn't it? Yeah. And they asked him what happened to Tyler Bate. Yeah, went back to his home planet, aka Dudley.
Exactly.
Planet Trump.
Exactly. Guiltiest tramp of them all. There is also the final of the World's Strongest Tag League, All Japan. I don't know who's in it. I fear it's Davey Boy Smith Jr. or something like in there as well. But it's presented by Glorious Pharmaceuticals, which is fair play for a pharmaceutical company for trying to do that. It is, isn't it? It's a fucking hiding in plain sight there, those lads. And then MCW Endgame, not from the Thornbury Theatre, which I'm upset about, but from the Melbourne Pavilion, place you know very well, in Kensington, Victoria. The MCW Tag Team title, 3 stages of Hell match. The Icons, Adam Brooks and Rocky Monero. Lovely lad, Adam Brooks, versus the Pariah of Eli Theseus and Gabriel Eros. And that's all the stuff from Japan and the rest of the world.
Nice. Europe, we only have the one show down, RevPro live in Southampton. Your old haunt, Joe's old haunt. The 1865. Leon Cage versus, who's getting a lot of rave reviews at the minute, versus Ethan Allen.
He was at that show in Oxford we were on.
Oh, there you go.
He's 17. He's fucking good. He is.
Yeah. He's one of them where it's like, yeah, you know, a lot of people talking him up. Hopefully it's not too soon, but yeah, not seeing him myself. But yeah, that's it. RevPro in Southampton's kind of the notable one for Europe. What else is going on, JP, in US, Canada, Mexico?
The real big show of the weekend. MLW, you mentioned it before. MLW's Eric Bischoff's One Shot 2024.
Do you reckon they paid him extra to put his name on the bill? Oh, do you reckon he's annoyed he didn't charge them more to put his name on the bill? Because you know Court Power, you know what he's like.
I think he'd be very aware that Court Bauer got a nice settlement from WWE, and he'd be making sure that he can get himself a bit of that fucking action. From the Melrose Ballroom there as well, we've got the MLW World Tag Team titles. I don't know what he'll make of Contra Unit. Hiroki Kawano, Minoru Suzuki versus Cozy Max of Okamura.
Minoru Suzuki's in Contra Unit.
Yeah. He's been in there a while now. He's been in there for like 6 months. That shows you where we've gone on the MLW radar. Okamura and Satoshi Kojima, who I think is still the world champion, and he seems like he's been the world champion for like a year at this point. Roulette tag team match, the Andersons, Brock and CW. That's the home for Brock Anderson. I know.
That's funny.
Versus Matthew Justice and somebody unknown. I'm just going to say one called Manders because they've tagged together loads of times, I think, before. Donovan Dijak versus Matt Riddle in a match that no one has asked for.
With MSL and Dijak.
I know.
Jesus
Problems all over that match, isn't it?
Dijak's the purest of the three. Jesus. Yeah.
I know.
It's just a mark. It's not a crime.
For the world middleweight title, we have Mystico versus Trevor Lee in there, which you'd imagine it'll be okay. Mystico, one of his working.
Remember Trevor Lee? I remember him. He was good, wasn't he?
We saw him at a Rev Pro. Not that I fucking remember. But like, yeah, he was there as well. But you know who is also going to be there? Deep breath. Paul Walter Hauser. A man who's in the Fantastic Four film. He's in a Bruce Springsteen fucking biopic with Timothy Chalamet. He's got time for this. On the fucking pre-show for AEW as well. It's just like, mate,
been defending Tony Khan on Twitter all week as well. He's like the AEW version of Ice Cube's shit son. He's not shit either, but he's a very talented actor. But similar bad opinions, just on the other side. But there you go. But yeah, Tony Khan's favorite promotion also running. Speaking of US and Canada and such, GCW Ransom from Florida, Rich Swann v Jack Cartwheel. Remember Rich Swann? Man like the Reese versus Sidney Akeem, John Wayne Murdoch versus Lindsay Snow, Joey Janela versus Zachary Wentz, and Mance Warner versus Fuego del Sol. Another, remember him? Mastermind from Atlanta, Georgia, Jimmy Wang Yang versus Joey Janela. That's boss. John Wayne, it'll be crap, but yeah, that made me laugh. John Wayne Murdoch versus Mr. Danger, and Mance Warner versus Tank. Wow.
Yeah. But this is the real show in there as well. Great Lakes Championship Wrestling from the Waukesha County Expo Center. Blizzard Brawl. Damian Sandow and Santina Morella versus the newest rockers of Al Snow and Kel Hero with Mai Jannetty. Didn't make that up.
Seriously. With Marty, that just gets better the further you go. Newest rockers, funny. Al Snow, funny. Cal Hero, who's that? And then you add Marty Jannetty. What a punchline.
Brilliant.
Superb.
It makes me want to fucking see it. I don't know about you.
Oh, no, this card gets better.
Ace Steel and Steve Macklin, I'm assuming, he's versus Kevin Garland.
He's got an H in his name. Is it the real one?
It can't be. It might be, actually.
Saw him wrestle. Blood Brothers Brewery. He was He's a pros pro, JP. Look great.
Good. Me and Matt have a lot of time for old Steve Macklin.
Saw him knocking around in the crowd actually at the AEW pay-per-view in the Prudential Center. Genuinely, I said this to a couple of people. Saw him walking around. He looks a star in that crowd because he's dressed well. He's built. You know what I mean? He's got like that marine haircut. He stood out like as soon as he walked past. Like, oh, who's that? And I was like, oh, Steve Macklin. So maybe I take it back about him being just a bloke in a crowd, not just a bloke. Better than just a bloke, I would say.
Passes the airport test, to quote Matty. They are up against Keegan Garland, I don't know who that is, and Scotty Too Hottie. Keegan Garland is his son, because his son is his real son, isn't it? Scott Garland.
Oh, right, yeah. His son.
Brian Kilcline versus Clive Mendonca. Zach Gowen versus the Honky Tonk Man.
10 times.
Exactly.
Sorry, no, read that next one again. Sorry.
Zach Gowen versus the Honky Tonk Man.
This is the card of the year. What's going on?
I hate to say, mate, I made that one up. I had it in green for a reason, and you've changed it round. Bollocks.
Sorry.
Trying to catch you out with that. Whether or not you'll also recognise Brian Kilcline, who played centre half for Coventry in the 80s, and Clive Mendonca, who was one of the great strikers in West Brom history. That was there for Liam as much. Joey Avalon versus Zilla Fatu, who's still not been signed. Everyone says he should be signed, including his dad, I think, as well, or his uncle, whoever Rikishi is, with Armando Estrada. What the fuck? But
I don't know why I made that yellow. That would be a good one for me because I have a clue what this next one is. This is very JP. What's this? The full
Chilean wrestling, mate. That's where the real action is.
The full anniversario number 24. That's right, yeah. From the Federación Universidad de Lucha Libre at the Antofagasta City Region de Antofagasta, Chile, from the Estadio Green Cross. Your old hunt. Rico versus Oxido versus Ronan Kaizon versus Joey Rebel versus 2-6. Nova versus Sandro. Chilco Draker and Manfred Sullivan versus El Pacto. Amy Brooks and Sahara versus Morgan and Nikki Blackmoon. Hit versus M. Ippo. Banshee versus Andrew Morroy. Oh, 8-man tag match. 8-man tag Super Libre match. Equipo Beltran, which is Amarok, Antonio Beltran, James Miller, and Zach Pavlichenko. Okay. Versus Equipo Hoffman. A mystery man, because the rest of these aren't mystery man. Raz Tower, Sebastian Hoffman, and Visitante. And for the full national title in a 60-minute Ironman match, Trox, who's the champion. Of course, we all know Trox versus Diego El Truno. Did you make every single one of them up?
Nope. No, that was a real card. I like, the way, if there's a card from China or a card from Brazil, I'm always intrigued. See who's on there. Lads, we don't know, and we never will know. And the moment we close down this spreadsheet, they are lost in time forever, like tears in rain, to quote Rutger Hauer out of Blade Runner. But a 60-minute Ironman match, that's a lot of work that Trox is going to have to do. I'm not convinced he's up to the job, and I know nothing about him.
You know what I should have said? Pedro Pascal's old haunt. He's Chilean, isn't he?
He is.
Narco's old haunt. That's where that's taking place. Well, that brings us to the end of the shows coming up this week. Educational. We all learned something.
Zamorano, that striker who played for Inter, he was from Chile as well. He was fucking awesome.
There you go. Some famous lads. But yeah, I guess everyone knows what we're up to this weekend. We're in Birmingham. And please come if you fancy. I know the plans. That's it, really. Like I say, out with Davey, out with with you and the lads on Saturday. Expecting to see a lot of people around, and sleeping on Sunday is pretty much the plan. Me and Matty get an open returns. Who knows what time we'll be sailing back into to Liverpool? But I imagine a takeaway and a lot of couch time is happening on my Sunday. Put my Christmas deckies up though, JP. They're up there, good to go.
Oh, good lad.
If you dare do so in your house yet, wait.
No, he'll get fucking torn down by the mad toddler. And he is turning into a mad toddler as well. But yeah, he'll be all torn down by him. But we're going to probably start doing that this week. It might be on Friday when I've finished work. And then I can go, right, I can switch my head off from work and just try and fucking do all of this stuff. So yeah, it's a big deal in this house, Christmas. But I've got all the Christmas presents sorted. All sorted. Black Friday sales. Honestly, it was like a hate campaign of delivery men over the last couple of weeks. But Like, what hell else was I going to do when I was holding a baby who was asleep on me and occasionally vomiting on me? I was like, well, I might as well just order shit for the kids and get it all done. So I did, yeah.
Only Black
Happy
Friday
days.
sale I went in for was StreamYard, mate. Dropped £300 of our money on it. Fucking bastards. Robbing
Which
cunts.
is fucking good by now, robbing bastards.
We'll make it back over the year.
Yeah, we will.
Late, but yeah, need to get me in some of those sales, get some Christmas stuff going myself. And it is Christmas too. I'm going up till the last weekend before Christmas. Yeah, I'm usually like that. Usually I'll do it like the couple of days before Christmas, get the films going. But I'm expecting to be, and I'll more on this next year. JP knows off here, but I'm going to be moving out of this place next year. So I felt like last Christmas here, I wanted to do it right, and enjoy it for the month. So yeah, got a little light up tree from Margot. Tenner it was, JP. So yeah,
good lad.
Like LED tree for £10. Can't argue with that.
Can't argue with that, mate. That's a cracking price for that. I mean, I'm going to go across the road to Aldi, which is pretty much across the road. It's like less than a 5-minute walk. And they do 15 quid for a tree there. So it's like, yeah, I'll have one of those.
Even Aldi now has their own version of Mixto. It's because the Vimto thing, they're equivalent to Little.
Yeah.
I can't remember what Aldi's one's called. It's another variation on the name, Fruto or something like that. It's called. You can get it there, mate. Might be Fruto.
On it.
Give it a go. Give us a review.
Planning on going there tomorrow. I'll be on that.
Well, there we go. Well, that's everything from us. Hope everyone enjoys the weekend. If you see it in Birmingham, say hello. But yeah, outside of that, plenty coming up this month. It is a new month, so thank you, patrons, for sticking with us and for being with us for the busiest period of the year in many regards, especially over here. We'll have the Grappies and Clappies coming up. No, Grappies and Crappies, that's a different thing. Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio with Connor, which I've tentatively said will be live on Tuesday, JP. A little bonus for you live patrons out there, with there being no spotlight this weekend, or no formal spotlight with time being released. So yeah, we'll be doing that. GRAPPL Lads, obviously Christmas special being recorded this weekend. We'll have a special film club coming up for Christmas, and of course the Ask GRAPPL end of year party, which is tentatively going to be the 27th of December, and we're expecting the Grappies and Clappies to be the 22nd. I think we're doing it in one night, aren't we, JP? I think we decided. We might live to regret that, but we'll be doing that on the 26th of December as well. But yeah, retro time, as I mentioned, Spotlight Weekend Show, plenty coming up. But yeah, folks, and hello to Eddie from live from Chicago.
Hey.
He's having a cracking time. But yeah, whatever you're doing, folks, this weekend, have a good one, and I guess we will catch you all again on GRAPPL Lads. Good night, all, and time.
Cuidate. Spanish means take care of yourself, and that's for you, Trox, after doing 60 minutes at full anniversario. Bye-bye.
Good night.